Hi, and welcome back to Tunes Tuesday. I'm Maud Mosley. My pronouns are they, them, and today I am joined by Ottawa singer-songwriter Kimberly Sunstrum. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you so much. My name is Kimberly Sunstrum. My pronouns are she, her, they, them. And yeah, that's it. I am a full-time singer-songwriter in Ottawa, musician, sound engineer. I wear a lot of hats, mostly because, you gotta hustle as hard as you can in this seemingly difficult industry that I've decided to pursue. But I enjoy doing a lot of different things, and it kind of keeps things interesting for me and constantly moving forward. So that's a very long-winded introduction of myself, and there you have it.
Amazing. No, it's good. Put all your credentials and effort out there. People deserve to know. So throughout the pandemic, you've set up a sweet live stream called Shay Right Here. And this has you like playing at home. You set up a nice little scene. There's someone bartending in the back. So it has like a bit of everything, it gives you this full mood and vibe. What gave you the idea and then the motivation to do this, and how has it been?
Yeah, I mean, in the early days when the announcements of the nationwide closures started to roll in, like, let me say a preamble that, like, I'm a full-time musician and my primary source of income is gig based. So I'm gigging more than I am not gigging, and that's my bread and butter, literally. Although I am gluten intolerant, so it's even more expensive. Um, so so yeah, prior to the pandemic, that was what I did. Just a lot of gigs, tours, all of that good stuff. I remember my last gig. It seems like yesterday, as well as like 10 years ago, was my last official gig before the closures was March 14th, and my first Shay Right Here live stream was March 16th. And the reason why it was like such a short turnaround is because, one, I was in straight panic mode of like how to continue to stay connected to anybody, as well as my fan base and audience, and like epic support system. And two, I also really was like kind of thrown by this idea of people um being lonely. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but like being alone and being lonely, and kind of feeling really like overwhelmed. Like, I even still right now get a little bit emotional just thinking about that kind of reality. I'm so lucky in the sense that I have the best dog in the entire world, hands down, as well as my fiance, who I live with. So I'm really fortunate that this closure was devastating for a lot of reasons for me, but not to the extent of like absolute aloneness. And that was something that I thought about a lot. So I wanted to create some sort of like concert series where I got to perform music, which is what I love to do, and kind of keep that connection going, as well as be interactive. Like, the first thing I knew I wanted to do was like ask for requests and keep communication going in the like little communication window, the chat windows. And it's my fiance who is the person that also helps me with my streams, um, and so yeah, so like that was really what it is. It was an ability for me to, on my side, be take care of my self needs and my like wellness needs, to continue to perform and to continue to be creative and have a creative outlet, but also stay connected and provide a resource for connection for people, which is really important to me. It's, in the performance world, that's one of the most addictive parts of it, is just creating that bubble that you can feel when you're performing, and like suddenly everybody's in that same bubble, and like we're going through it together. So that was my primary goal, as well as obviously monetizing on this, and continuing to bring in an income, because I had no idea if the government was going to provide anything. So I also knew that from a financial standpoint, I needed to figure out some alternative revenue income. So that was the other reason why I decided to jump on the live stream bandwagon.
Absolutely. And, I love what you're talking about there with like giving that sense of connection. I feel like lots of people had different ways that they went about doing that because they realized that they weren't going to get through anything without it, as well as, wanting to support others going through tough times. But you really talk about there like being gig based, and lots of musicians right now we're gig based, or we're making lots of money from touring because with music sales these days, that's really where the money is. So when those stopped
Absolutely.
happening, that did put a lot of financial stress on people. But with these gigs that you're talking about, I kind of want to talk about your work before the pandemic. And prior to the pandemic, you were frequently playing at, queer events such as Queers and
Hmm.
Beers, as well as lots of other places. You play like a diverse array of venues. And that really got me curious to know if there's differences between playing a specifically queer event versus like a general event. Is there a different way you act? Is there different songs you may play? Is there a different like kind of reception that you get?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And in short, yeah, there's definitely a different feeling when I'm performing, knowing that it's a queer space in its like absolute base form. It's just that like instant settling feeling of comfortability. Like you can be your absolute authentic self. And I'm not saying that, the queer community, we have our issues with acceptance as well. But generally speaking, just knowing that stepping into that space, that's a space that, I feel like comfortable in, I feel like myself in, I feel like, I belong there, and it's a space that I can wholeheartedly be myself. So yeah, so that's the initial feeling of performing in a queer space or for a queer event like Queering 613 or Queer Mafia, or those epically wonderful nights, which I miss so much. And I mean, in terms of song choices, yeah, a little bit. I bust out the Whitney. I bust out a little bit of Melissa Etheridge sometimes. I do the thing. Pink comes out a little bit more. Um, but yeah, definitely a little bit more upbeat, just because that's it's a time to have a blast. But I really think that the question is interesting because in my performance persona, and it's not very different to my. I don't have like a fun, fancy like ta-da, I'm performing, which would be totally cool, but I'm not. I don't think I'm that cool yet. Keyword being yet. But I have a very short, condensed history of like my understanding of my performance presence, and I started really performing a lot when I started working on cruise ships, which is these random floating hotels where people would just eat and drink their faces off and have as much fun as they could possibly have. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, but I don't think we have time for that. But yeah, I remember and I remember being very conscientious of this when I was performing on these cruise ships, which are primarily home based out of different states in America, being very conscientious to not reveal myself on stage, to not that I was hiding anything, but just not like there was absolutely no ability to define who I was, or my background, or how I identify, or anything like that. And that was definitely a safety measure. I was I would come across conversations of people talking about all sorts of garbage, that made me realize that it was not necessarily the safest space to be open, or immediately open to everyone. Obviously I would have interactions with lovely people here and there, that I could feel more comfortable to be more authentic with, but on stage I had a very controlled version of myself. I never tried to make any, like, a lot of performers on cruise ships make a lot of sexualized jokes, and like that's part of their shtick, like the crude jokes and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't want to go anywhere into that category, because that's just not my comfort zone. I don't want to, I don't know. I just didn't want to reveal any part of myself. I just wanted to do music. That's it. I just wanted to go up there and perform, sing my face off, play guitar. That was it. And it slowly became more and more difficult to be that, like it's just like exhausting, standing on a stage and just like restricting yourself so much. So it was that experience. And I worked on cruises for a little, like about 2 years, a little over 2 years. And it was yeah, that experience that kind of really made me aware of how important it was to be myself, and not just be myself, but be representative of who I am in my community. You know, I'm a queer woman of color in a music industry that, you know, has been not the greatest to any segment of that sectionality. Um, so, you know, it was really like leaving the cruise ship industry and realizing that, you know, I want to be a representative. I want to be open and honest and like upfront and, you know, there, you know, I want to be that role model for anybody that needs a role model, because I didn't have that when I was growing up. I didn't get to see my face or somebody who looked like me or sounded like me or, you know, came across like me, in any sort of media fashion. So yeah, I take that very to heart now. And you know, I don't look down on that period of my performance history. It was, you know, we're all going through this learning process and figuring ourselves out, the way that we can. And I understand, man, I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's amazing.
Okay. And I do understand, like growing up, I grew up in a lot of different countries, 8 different countries. And, most of those countries, I know for a fact, all of those countries when I was growing up, um, being queer was illegal. It, you know, even in my other home country, I'm half Canadian, half Botswana. Even in Botswana, they only decriminalized homosexuality 2 years ago. So I know that was a lot of it. You know, there's still that idea of feeling safe, and protecting yourself and not, revealing too much until you know who's who and who's where and where they stand. But yeah, so it took a little while for me to feel comfortable with that, feel safe with that for myself. But now I'm really happy that I've got to a point where, you know, people view me as, a positive outlet in the queer community, in the Black community, you know, in the music community. And I still think it's very important. I still think there's so much room for more representation, obviously. But I'm really glad to be comfortable with that for myself.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you sharing that whole, learning curve with us.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people just kind of want to talk about where they're at now. So I really appreciate you taking that time to be like, well, this is my current experience and this is what I try to do, but I wasn't
Yeah.
always there and this really was a process.
Yeah,
And you're
for
right, we
sure.
unfortunately don't have time to dive more into your cruise ship experience, but I always find those topics so interesting,
Yeah.
with really anyone who's worked on cruise ships, from like bakers to musicians. Like, I think it's such a,
Yeah.
boxed experience where you can really only talk about it if you come across somebody who's done it. And not a
Yeah.
lot of people know about it. And not a lot of people kind of recognize that labor.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would love to do a future thing just about that though.
Sign me up. I got the dirt. Let's do it.
Amazing. Okay, we'll definitely call you. For now, though, this year is coming to an end. So,
Hmm.
like both in like somehow, but also finally.
Hmm.
Um, who knows? But maybe you're just taking some much needed time to, rest and relax and handle everything that's going on. But do you have any plans for new music or projects in 2021?
Yeah, I mean, I have been described as a hyperactive person, which I'm very proud about. It's nothing to be ashamed of. And you know, that was the other thing that I was really concerned with. Sorry, I just covered my mouth while I was talking. Yeah, so that was the other thing I was really concerned with the closures, is that like my creativity or my creative, energy was going to be depleted, kind of coping with this pandemic and managing my emotions and my feelings around this you know, life altering moment that we're all in. Um, and fortunately and unfortunately, you know, the epic levels of devastating news that we've been accustomed to absorbing these days, has not diminished my creativity. And I've been writing a lot, which I'm so grateful for, because I know it's my coping mechanism, and I know it's my way of like understanding and dealing with what's going on. So I've been writing a lot, and I work with Kira Montfort, who's a wonderful, talented, hardworking drummer, percussionist in Ottawa. And we've been figuring out ways to safely record together and do some projects together. So we've got some new music coming out next year, as well as some new music videos. And I've got a songwriter performance, live stream performance coming up on the 28th, which is, I define as like that limbo period after Christmas and before New Year's where nothing matters. So I thought it was a perfect time to put Shay Right Here concert there. And yeah, I've been, there's not a lot going on in the New Year's in terms of performances, because, you know, we're now in this newer lockdown that's coming up. So everybody's kind of trepidatiously seeing what's going to happen. But you know, I'm always talking with organizations, art organizations, to keep things moving, keep things like moving forward in terms of creativity and projects. So yes, a few things that are like getting thrown on the fire, but I'm really excited about the new music that I've been working on, and can't wait to share it.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I'm really excited to hear it too. I really hope I can make it to the next Shay. I hope you can as well. And if you would like to find their music or know how to stay tuned to see that when it comes out, check out the links down below. It'll take you to her music, their social media. So definitely stay tuned for all that exciting stuff. And thank you so much for joining me today on this week's Tunes Tuesday. Would you like to say anything before we go?
Yeah, I want to say thank you so much for putting on this wonderful show and this wonderful thing that people can tune into and be part of. And I'm really excited that I got a chance to be involved.
Thank you so much. Well, it was so lovely to have you. Bye.